Well, that's a little different. That's quite the effort, actually. I don't know if you ever dug down into River Rock, but I'm guessing there's a bear here. Must have smelled something yummy down there. It's quite the hole. Sand in my reel. I hooked 2 steelhead last year right behind me. Nothing's in here biting right now. I'm definitely going to take a minute out to read another email though. I don't think the river's too loud right here, so I'll talk a little louder than normal. Now, listen to this one. It's titled The Animal. Hi Steve, long-time watcher. You do get out the truth, unlike all the wannabes out there with their howling and tree thumping, and to date nothing to their credit. Maybe they should get in touch with the folks that claim they have exchanged gifts with this animal, or the guy that claims he serenades them and they sit and enjoy his music. Perhaps you should try that music on a charging grizzly bear and see what that gets him. Okay, let me get on. I have been going to get this out to you for some time, but was not sure on how it would be received. After the video on Tuesday on the letter from the nuclear physicist, I decided to go for it. I'm 82, with 16 years in the U.S. Navy, and a retired Marine engineer. At the time I lived in southern Arizona, and you may use my name. This creature is smart in its ability to hunt and stalk its prey. The truth is, there is no hard evidence that it has ever killed anyone. But with the disappearances of so many people without a trace, and so many of them leaving not a blemish on the ground, or any kind of evidence or bodily fluids, i.e. blood, etc., behind, is very strange, but not improbable. People that have disappeared while hiking with others, in some cases, in what is thought to be plain sight. Children, adults, many older, not in good health. Truth of our known predators, i.e. wolves, coyote, bear, and mountain lions, attack, maim, or kill. It would be heard by all close by. The above animals are not, for the most part, silent, and the victims will be able to yell out. Then there are hunters that go missing without a trace, and evidence left behind. Most of the missing in the above are never found. There are intellectuals out there who do not want to buy into this. I pray they do not have an encounter as the one you read the letter from did. These are my thoughts on what we are dealing with. We know from first-hand accounts, photos, and video that this creature can be up to 9 feet tall and have a shoulder width of 5 feet or more. Is heavily muscled, and according to eyewitness accounts and video, very fast. Question: what would the walking stride of this animal be? And then calculated at the run. By now, you should be very nervous, if not up and scared to death. I feel that when this animal is on the hunt, it times its attack when the person is looking away, and with its great speed is on its victim, grabbing up its prey with one hand and arm and grabbing the victim's head in the other, breaking their neck, and all this is done in the time it takes to take a breath. It's too quick for you to yell out, and the creature in an instant is off into the brush, gone in the silent attack without a sound. Also, kill zone. You hunt, I hunt. We have seen kill zones of all the animals I mentioned above. But has anyone seen a kill zone of a Bigfoot? I've seen a report on a kill zone of a moose in the Kenai Peninsula, Alaska. 3 First Nation gentlemen were tracking a moose. Then they started picking up human-like tracks along with the moose tracks. After some time, they came across a kill zone, and it was the moose, and it was the moose they were in fact tracking. They said it was shredded, ripped apart, blood, hide, and bones spread out in a great circle, and the human tracks leaving. They returned home very upset. I believe that this animal lives in a pride like lions or other animals that live in a group. The male is the hunter, and he brings home the food. His mate takes care of the young ones. If this is true, it explains why we never find a kill zone. He takes it home. On the above moose, that could have been a young male not yet with a mate. There are a few professional hunters, guides, and researchers who have went missing. These are among the best outdoorsmen. On a last note, accounts of people being attacked by Bigfoot in their homes, cabins, and tents camping, some so upset they abandoned their home and belongings and their camping equipment. Let us all pray this creature fails to realize how easy it would be for it to gain entry into our flimsy homes. In closing, you may not want to read this to your viewers. If there were kill zones and we could say this creature is killing and eating humans in the wilderness, how long would the women allow the babies to be taken camping or on a picnic in the bush? What would the impact be on wilderness parks and forests? And that may explain why in the States on some missing persons, the FBI and special forces are brought in on a lost hiker search. Okay, Steve, I did it. The above scares me. I do not enter some areas alone and only with ones I can count on, other combat vets. The physicist that wrote you had good reason to be terrified of this creature. Well, Mike Blatchford, thanks for that, man. Everybody's going to have their views on what these are and how they operate. Myself, do I believe they run in prides and they're acting just like a wild animal? Not me, I don't. Not me. There's too much evidence pointing otherwise, These are a people, that's for sure. Do I think it's about money? No, I don't think. You know what? I'm just telling you guys my opinion. I'm not necessarily right about anything. And the good thing about here is we can all talk to each other, throw in our 2 cents or not, and carry on trying to fill in our own personal puzzle, right? So that being said, because there seems to be some very sensitive people on the internet, I'll tell you what, but all I'm saying is the intelligence that I've seen, the intelligence that has been reported, the thousands of eyewitness accounts of supernatural things going on is far too strong to let it be thought of as a simple animal that runs in a pride and kills and packs shit home to feed the family. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm leaning towards no, they don't do that. Myself. Furthermore, David Paulides, he probably knows more about these forest beings than anybody, as far as I'm concerned. Anybody that's come forward publicly, anyway. And I know that he is definitely interested on what comes from the sky at times. We'll leave it at that. You can talk to him more about that if you feel. That'll be a jet plane. It's funny how you can hear the rumble before you actually figure out what it is. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, man. Everybody gets to be heard. All right, here we go. This thing's fairly lengthy one, but I'm going to go for it, and then I'm going to see if I can wear out my casting arm some more. My third share. It's another Saturday, marking 2 weeks since my brother's passing. Sorry for bringing it up, but he and I were very close, with only a little over a year separating us. We were like day and night, opposing forces that could not exist without the other, or at least be whole without the other. He was very outgoing, and people loved him, especially the women. Though he was as much a Dakota as I, we both have the same parents. He was that somewhat rare native that had light-colored hair and grayish-green eyes. He was a hoop dancer as a youth, as well a fancy dancer. We were both in the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey combined shows. They don't call it a circus. In 1993, along with a few others, but things fell through and it didn't work out for the Native American themed tour that was going to take place the fall that year. We were placed in a small camp that taught us circus skills when we began. It was in northern New England. I don't want to say the name of it just in case it gets unwanted company and press. And that was where my senses were developed or sharpened into feeling their presence. I don't know why my brother wouldn't admit to these beings as real creatures. He always tried telling me that they didn't exist, yet he had seen them as well. There were times where he was standing right next to me while we stared at them, or perhaps they did it to his memory, what they did to me, and wipe it from our memory. To be honest, it did feel like a stab in the back when he would never admit they were real. But after a while, I never really cared if he admitted it or not. Sorry about your brother's passing, man. Before 1993, my experiences were not really that eventful. Whenever my dad and I went hunting, which was the only time I ever felt real or alive or free, I would feel something staring at me or watching me. I knew immediately it was no deer or squirrel or any other forest critter, because whatever this was, it had a mind to think. It was a conscious being. And I would experience this staring every time I would go hunting with my dad. I'm 7 years old. The amount of years he thought was enough to leave me alone in the woods while he ventured into his spot to the time I was 22. I always felt them watching. But it was never terrifying or a bit spooky. They knew who my dad was since he hunted there several years before I was even born. And I think they respected him because they never chased him away or even made themselves known to him. That was most of what my hunting in southern Manitoba was like. I could feel them watching, and a few times I'd get mine spoken to, but that was it. When I was 12, I moved to my reservation to live with my mom and brother and all my sisters. This is where I learned that these beings had supernatural abilities. I also heard the lore about them and what my people thought about them. I always lived in a town or city and never had the chance to hear any stories of these beings or any other being out there. All I learned from were those Time Life books and videos that became so popular at the time. I learned about Sasquatch, aliens, ghosts, etc. It was all very interesting to me, almost like a calling, but I never really followed any of it. Anyway, during the times I'd go into the forest and feel these beings watching me, I'd always talk to them. I'd always tell them about myself and the life I was going through, hoping they'd understand me. Of course they did, and a few times they'd answer back, mind speak. Then at 13, during the summer, my brother and I were taken to Vermont, along with our little cousin and a few other natives from around the US and Canada. Now let me say this right away. The very moment we arrived in Vermont, the northern part of Vermont, it was as though we all stepped into a different world. It was so beautiful, green, and mountainous. It felt so untouched by industry and pollution that it felt so pure. And there was this immediate feeling of welcoming and peace that we received from the forests and lands that were so new to me. It was very overwhelming. There was so much beauty to take in. I was in love with that land that very instant. And just like when I was younger and hunting, I could feel that familiar stare or gaze, and it was very loving and kind of seemed excited as well. I have to smile because of the irony. These beings were staring at us, the native troop, as though they had never seen natives before and only heard of tales of them, and now there before them were like 10 native children. Haha. But we all felt the spirit of the land, as we called it back then, and we all loved it because it was so pure and free and loving. Now I know it was the forest beings that were sending us these feelings. They watched over us whenever we ventured into the woods to explore and visit the small creeks and waterfalls. A few times, I'd even seen something at the corner of my eyes moving and then dart behind a tree whenever I'd look that way. One time, when I was out in the woods alone, I always liked going out alone and preferred it that way. I found myself playing hide and seek with I have no clue what at the time. I just realized what I was doing and then stopped and thought to myself, what am I doing? Or who am I looking for? Then we'll walk back to the trailer where a few of us stayed because we didn't feel comfortable staying in the house or a barn that was converted to bunks. I had seen a very tall and slender man, or whom I thought was a farmer, walk across the trail in full view, deliberately wanting me to see it. It was about 100 yards away, and when I walked over there to where it came out across the trail, I could tell right away that this man, or farmer, was very tall, because its head hit the branch and caused it to move and sway, and the branch must have been at least 12 to 13 feet high. Yet I didn't think about it. Kind of like the tracks outside the house I stayed in at the quarry my brother and his wife used to own, where there were huge footprints in the dirt where I thought I had heard something very heavy walking the night before, thinking it was probably a moose or bear, but then seeing the actual bear footprints that were probably 16 inches long and very wide. Anyway, Vermont has a special place in my heart, not only because the people there are very nice and polite, but because of its Sasquatch beings and lands. I remember in '94 when my brother and I returned in the summer. One night while my brother was sleeping, I could hear something big walk up to the trailer we were staying in. This trailer was different from the previous year. This new one was held together by duct tape pretty much. The holes in the canvas were duct taped shut, and only a few remained, but those holes were kind of underneath, so there's no worry about rain getting in. So, while my brother was sleeping and was reading a book by candlelight, I heard something huge and heavy walk up to the trailer. Unfortunately, the trailer was very close to the hole we use for composting. And when you have a camp full of kids and adults, there's going to be a lot of leftover food that gets thrown away. While listening to whatever it was outside the trailer that night, I imagined it to be a bear because I had heard it grunting and snorting through the compost pit. The moment I thought about making noise to chase this bear away was followed by a very disgusting smell. It was like a skunk sprayed, but it was also mixed with bad body odor or something. I started choking. My eyes began watering as I pulled my blanket up to my nose and mouth because I was even tasting it. Then I see this huge arm come through the canvas wall where there was a hole and it wasn't taped shut. It was just beside my brother. And it looked like that huge arm was going to scoop my brother with just one arm, like picking up a small baby. The arm was hairy. I was so shocked, not scared, to see this. All I could do was say no, but I don't recall pulling the blanket away from my mouth to say it, so I must have said it in my mind. And all of a sudden, the arm stops and withdraws. I could hear the huge creature walk back into the field and then back towards the woods. When I woke up the next day, I'd forgotten about it. My last summer there was in 2000, and I really miss that place, the people, and my forest brothers. I have several experiences during the same years, but they were spent during the end of the summer and during the fall also, and happened in New Hampshire. This started in 97, when I was first taken to the quarry. Of course, it started with the feeling of being watched, then seeing movement at my peripheral, and then one night I was really drunk, got lost in the woods surrounding the quarry, and those beings helped me get back to the solar house I was staying in. I also spent time playing hide and seek with one of these creatures there. I think it was the same one I'd walked up and chased the one night. I think it was a juvie and liked playing games. Played jokes too. The mother of the group was a very caring being. It reminds me so much of my own mother in the sense that she did everything for her family and others. The dad of the family, though, he was a very stern creature. He didn't play games nor joke. He was a very serious being. One time in 99 during the fall, I was waiting for my friend to come over in the morning, like he usually did. He'd come walking in and say he brought my groceries, which were a 6-pack of Bud and a pack of Camel Wides, a booklet of matches. We'd just sit around the cliff house or beach area and have a few while shooting the shit. He was a Vietnam vet and a good man. Anyway, I was sitting on the couch that morning when I'd heard footsteps coming down the granite steps outside the door. I thought it weird because I didn't hear his car pull up. I also noticed that his footsteps sounded a little different. But I shrugged the idea off and thought I'd play a prank on him and hide behind the couch and jump out when he walked close. As I heard the door open and heard the first few footsteps, I knew right away that it wasn't my friend. Whoever this was had very loud, heavy footsteps as though they were really big. I became afraid as I was hiding, and this thing got closer. I closed my eyes because it was really close, and when it came to the couch, I could tell it was looking straight down at me. I could feel the intenseness of its gaze. I don't know why, but in my mind, all I could say was that I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to see fully what it looked like. Then the feeling went away, and though I didn't hear any footsteps, I felt as though it was gone. I opened up my eyes, kind of scared that it was still there looking at me, but there wasn't anyone or anything standing there. I sat up, then stood up, looking around, and seeing no one. I walked around the house looking for anyone, but no one was there. During the fall, I knew the weather was getting colder, and I would have to leave back to Manitoba. And I remember walking around the quarry, a little melancholy that I was saying goodbye to it. On October 31st, I called for a taxi to take me to Manchester, New Hampshire, where I would catch the bus to go to Montreal, where I would then catch a flight to Winnipeg, and then get a ride to Brandon, where I was hoping to surprise my parents and siblings and nieces and nephews. While thinking the taxi was taking long to get up there, the taxi calls and tells me that there is a huge tree blocking the driveway at the bottom of the hill. I immediately had the notion that the quarry didn't want me to leave. And then I realized that I've dealt with several fallen trees. Whenever it was close to the time I would have to leave, over the couple of times I'd spent there. One time, I even remember seeing one tree getting pushed over by a reddish-haired being. I also recall hearing cries that night, loud screeching cries. Now I know they were sad that I was leaving. I was welcomed into the family, and now I had to leave them. I remember hearing a few shares from Vermont, and I think southern New Hampshire, which is where my experiences came from as well. But I remember hearing the writers talking about how much they were accepted and loved by these beings and how pure their love is. And actually, I too had a hard time writing my experiences through my tears. I've never had a really bad experience with any of these creatures, I guess. Only once I was yelled at through Mindspeak while traveling the highway in BC and needing to stop to pull over and use the trees. It was like my mind could only think or hear the words, "Leave and get out of here." And so my dad and I left as fast as we could. And we both said to each other that we had a bad feeling and almost a warning to leave that area, but that was it. I have several more experiences, but this is way too long and I have to go for now. I'll talk to you next Saturday, people. Take great care of yourselves and yours. Wolfman Johnny. P.S. If anyone had that scary being watched feeling wherever you are, say or think to it, "Peace be upon you, my brother. I have no ill intentions, and I ask that you have no ill intentions towards me as well. You have no idea how much this will help you. You may have to repeat it once or twice, but they will get the hint." I concur. I use that all the time, and I used that this morning. Wow. Again, I'm sorry to hear about your brother passing, man. This gotta suck. I'm sure you're gonna hook up with him again later on. I'm a firm believer that's gonna go down. After this ride's done, there's gonna be another one. I'm interested in hearing more from you. I love hearing from our First Nations members. Like Dave was possibly one of the first people to point out that most Native communities as well have a lot more settings and experiences, interactions with these things than any other communities. There's definitely a connection there for sure. But anyway, daylight's burning. I'm feeling it after half a day of casting nonstop. I haven't really stopped yet, and I'm not gonna. When I stop, I'm gonna read, and when I'm not reading, I'm gonna cast. So, one quick note: last night, there was some unfortunate news when it comes to the protests in Canada here, with everybody fighting for their freedom. Americans are as well joining in to assist in the fight for our freedom, our freedom of choice, from what is now becoming very clearly a dictatorship government here in Canada. And I'm not saying that out of emotion, I'm saying that out of fact. It's really odd. I want all of you to be aware that was pointed out last night from one of the organizers, was that the national news and our criminal prime minister have basically been saying the exact same words, word for word. When his response to the people demanding their freedom, and as well when you hear the national news spewing the same rhetoric, which is false, but it's word for word. And the first person to point that out also said, "I wonder who's writing that script for them." And I also wonder that too. But anyways, another little piece of the misfortune I want to pass on to you is the $10 million that was collected in a very short time, which was meant to contribute to the support of the protesters, was through GoFundMe, which is a California American business. And the Canadian government managed to persuade them to freeze the money and not let the people have it where it's intended to go. I believe I read this morning there's like 20 US lawyers are pouncing on that company right now, as they should. But I want you to be aware of that, all right? When you think you're in a free country, a free land, and you can do what you want and you have the right to assemble peacefully, apparently you don't right now. And that's what our forefathers fought and died for, was to ensure that we had that freedom. Okay? You might want to look into that, and you might want to voice how you feel about that out loud and spread the word with everyone you know and fight back. This is the time. I have a funny feeling if these battles that are being fought right now, if they're not won, I have a funny feeling we're not going to get to have any other ones. And I sincerely mean that. Anyway, I'll chop that off short, but I really want you to look into those facts. The GoFundMe business is not trustworthy, period. They are against the freedom of all of us. So I would strongly suggest, it's up to you, but I wouldn't support them with an empty pop can, let alone $1. I'll be back shortly.